fit the whole hour with conversation because so little has gone on since.
And that's an hour, give or take, because
We used
when this, go ahead.
if you remember, we used to do this every night.
Right.
Every night there was 6 stories. Oh,
Remember, like about week 2, things kind of slowed down, and we were like, well, we may not do it every night because there's not a lot to talk about. And then, that lasted for about 5 minutes. Hey, Max, how are you?
yeah,
Hey, buddy.
Hi, say
There we
hi.
go. You've got a helper.
I've got a helper who does not want me to be able to hear what you're saying. He wants me to hear
And that's
Mickey.
perfectly fine.
He's a production assistant.
He's a production. He's making sure
Can you
that
say
those.
hi? Say bye. We've trained him that when he says bye, he just screams it at the top of his lungs like 75 times. So it's awesome. He just goes, bye. Say bye bye.
Hi.
Oh, he's being
Max
shy.
is such a cutie.
He's being shy. We just had our bath and we're running around with only a shirt on at this point. So,
Right.
right, Max?
Probably spent most of quarantine.
So how have you guys been? I haven't been involved in this in a couple of weeks.
I did,
Yeah.
I think last week I did a solo 15 minutes, but then I realized that it's difficult to do a show unscripted for an hour all by yourself. You don't have anything to bounce any ideas off of. It just goes, woof. Then you think, well, maybe that was interesting. Then you say something else. Maybe that was interesting. I don't know. Then you go,
It makes you appreciate, like Bill Burr does that podcast by himself sometimes twice a week, and he
Right.
just goes, and it's hilarious.
oh, he is a one of a kind. That's one of the greats right there. Bill Burr. Bill Burr, the Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's one of my favorite bits
Oh.
of all time. It's like
What?
why don't you people criticize this man? This man was great.
And how could he know he was going to get caught? He was in the zone for 4 decades.
Right?
Matt, have you seen
He
that
could not
bit?
lose.
I have not.
Oh my! You have to watch it.
Is that on his
like,
latest one?
No, it came out.
Oh,
It's
no,
probably
no, this
almost.
is
It came out around the time Arnold got in trouble for touching his.
Baby?
It turns out he was touching the au pair or whatever, and he had like an 18-year-old baby. It was right around the time that they figured all that out. So you've got to watch it. It's Bill Burr just explaining to you why Arnold would naturally think that he could just do whatever he wanted.
It was Arnold.
Yeah.
Well, that's what
And
he
also
says.
why
He says you criticize him. He says, why don't you go to a different country? Learn their language.
Right.
Become a movie star. When
Right.
you can't even
Marry into royalty.
you can't even pronounce English. Become the governor of a state that you can't pronounce.
Yeah, and he keeps saying, "Oh, this is a great man. This is a great man."
You marry royalty. You marry into the Kennedys.
Yeah, he definitely had a horseshoe up his ass. That's for sure.
But yeah, that was one of the great bits ever.
Old
Oh.
edgy Bill Burr was funny, man. New
Yes,
Bill Burr
he
is still funny, but
Well,
He's-
he also
they're all
does that-
getting handcuffed to some extent.
Oh yeah.
yeah, he also just had another baby. So almost all of his early material was sort of maybe critical of women in relationships, and then he got married, and then when I went to see him live, he did some bits about kids that were hilarious, but I never saw anywhere because they were maybe a little inappropriate. And so a lot of his material from the last 15 years he can't really get into anymore for personal reasons. So, but he keeps putting out the hits.
That movie that with Pete Davidson,
King
Yeah.
of
King of
Staten
Staten Island
Island.
or something. He's supposed to be really good in that. I've heard.
That was a great movie. That was a
Was
great
it?
movie. It was.
It's on
If you
Netflix
look-
now, isn't it?
It is. It
If
is.
you look back before Bill Burr was huge, he had I don't think it was his channel. Somebody had a YouTube channel where 2 hours before his show, he would just go on a walk and just start cracking on people. And he's got a couple where he's like walking through New Jersey and stuff, and it's just comedy gold. He can't have any friends that aren't comedians. Just I don't know how anybody could deal with that guy. But
He also does a series where he just drives through towns that he knows and he gives you sort of
Yeah.
a history. And it's just gold. It's gold from one end to the other.
yeah.
The Cubs Sox fan thing is still one of my favorites.
Uh,
Those are Cub fans, and they're not to be respected.
yeah. If you see a guy who's got a passion for what he does, that's a Sox fan. If you see some idiot wearing a floppy hat and a t-shirt that says "Let's play 2," those are Cub fans, and they are not to be respected.
So Pat, have you been out of court? You've been in court a little bit. I know you've been out on baseball tournaments.
Yeah, I was gone. I left. I was gone all last week. I left just like the Friday, the 25th or 6th or whatever.
Right.
Went to ISU, then we went down south, and then came back. I got back. We were successful, which was great, but we didn't leave Tennessee till 8, which was not great. So I got home about 5 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning. But I've been to court. I went to court Wednesday and today.
Do you know how you know Pat was in court today? You know how you know Pat was in court today? Because one of my clients came up to me and said, I walked by Pat and I said something, probably being cross for no reason. And one of my clients said, "Hey, that's the guy who's in all your YouTube videos."
So now I'm the guy. I'm just the guy that knows the guy.
You're the guy. You're the guy. You're the guy.
I'm the guy who knows the guy.
That's right.
We've been back in court now for a couple weeks, and I can only ask one question. Why? Just why?
So I don't know how you guys are, but we went through 3 months where we did nothing basically.
Right?
I did some stuff. I did some hearings. I boxed a little bit. So I've been trying to be pretty aggressive about closing stuff that kind of aged out in that time, and it is now just kind of lingering on for no reason. And I've been pretty good about doing that. But like today, I put a plea through. Earlier this week, I put a plea through, and I'm literally thinking to myself, there's 2 things going on right now for the most part. And I did do a long hearing yesterday, so maybe it's not 2, but for the most part, there's continuances and there's pleas. That's basically what's going on right now. And both of those could be handled a little bit differently, especially in light of the fact, and I've said this on here and I'm going to say it, and I'm probably going to get in trouble. You can't get near those judges, right? They've taped off the floor. They put furniture in front of them. You're like 10 feet from a judge. And you walk into court and everybody's spaced out and you're like, well, they're taking the social distancing seriously. And then you walk out into the hallway where the 30 people waiting to get into court or waiting for the lawyer to call a case are huddled up, and you can do nothing except walk through. And in Woodstock, King County's the same, but King County's not got people showing up. But the courtroom doors are next to each other. They're paired up. So you've got 2 courtrooms worth of people standing right behind there. And it just feels like a farce, man. It feels like
it's not a farce. It's not a farce. It will, it's one of those things that, when you watch a teenage driver and they're really bad, right? You mean like you're constantly like, oh man, whoa, what's going on? And then eventually they kill a mailbox or a quarter panel on a tree, or they run the car up on a rock. We all knew it was going to happen. It isn't like, oh my gosh, what a surprise. The teenage driver wrecked the car. Well, obviously that's exactly what's going to happen. This is going to go until we get a nice rush of infection, and then somebody's going to bite it, and then they're going to be like this. Nobody could have prevented that. I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody could have prevented that.
It feels to me like football right now, where we're kind of like playing this game and it's a charade, and at some point it's just going to get shut down because somebody is going to have a problem and blow it up, and we're going to realize, like, you know, we talked about this, we've all walked by within inches of somebody who is positive, and then what are they going to do? I don't know. I changed, you'll see I changed my name there, where now it says Attorney Matthew Heideck, and I did that because one of the counties that's allowing me to appear by Zoom wants you to do that. So if you're in there with your client, they know who the lawyers are and who aren't. But I'm filling that out thinking, like, I don't know, man. Like, some of these places like Woodstock that is just operating on the idea that everything's going to be open and back in 2 months. I think I'm wondering why we're showing up, risking our own health and safety for matters that mostly could be done at our discretion other places. Like we talked about this, have clients show up at my office to let me appear on Zoom. You know, I don't know why I can't do that. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, one of the things that's curious to me is that you go into court and you do something. And let's say it's 3 cases and I get another date. The first thing that happens to me is I say, okay, give me this date. 2 things will happen. Okay. Either they'll say, no, you can't have that date. You get October 1st. And you're like, well, okay, I didn't want October 1st, but okay, I'll take it. In other courtrooms, you'll say, you know, I just need 3 weeks. I got to get an evaluation. We can come in and we can finish this case. And they'll go, oh, no, you get a different date than you want. So you go in there and you try to get a specific date that fits, you know, what you're trying to accomplish and what the state's trying to accomplish. And then they talk you into another date.
Yeah, and that's a problem, because in Woodstock, where you can appear in some places by Zoom and you can't others, unless you have all your remote appearance cases lined up on one day, it doesn't make sense to do any of them by Zoom. That's the problem I have with Woodstock in particular. Everything is courtroom by courtroom, and unless you're going to line up all your 303 stuff and all your 301 stuff and none of your 104 stuff, it's just not worth going through the effort to make it work. Hi, buddy. How are you? Pat's dying to chime in, though. Pat, what do you have to say?
I was just trying to figure out how to chat. I wanted to say, what up, Fred? Fred Nichols on board.
Oh,
In the house.
Fred, I just sent Fred a microphone, and maybe at some point Fred can join us on this. He could talk.
I would love to get some Fred Nickel input on this, on everything, on life.
On life.
Fred Nickel. What drives me nuts is everything's fairly well marked out. We can have, you know, 4 people in a courtroom that would sit, you know, 80 normally. We can't approach the prosecutors. We can't approach the judge. We can hand stuff to the bailiff. And all of us who are in there trying to practice, because it's open, are stacked up like cordwood.
Oh,
we
yeah.
are absolutely, you know, us and our clients are stacked up like cordwood, either in the hallway or there. I mean, what exactly are they thinking is the, I don't know.
Well, I don't think they care about, they don't care about civilian attorneys. They don't care about defense attorneys. They don't care about, you know, they don't care about the public. There was a case where they have it taped out so like only 6 people can sit in a row. And then the bailiff, a family comes in and sits down at the end. So like 4 people sat at the other end of the courtroom, and then people started to fill in, and the bailiff was like, you can only sit together if you're, I mean, like the rules are unclear. So you can only sit together if you're a family at home. But I mean, it really just, all of a sudden it just falls apart. The other thing is that in some courtrooms, they have the courtroom planned out very well, except for the attorney waiting line. So the attorney waiting line is 7 deep. They're standing back to front. So you're like, well, that's, I mean, that doesn't, that, you know, those people are not protected. So it's really, I had one where I approached and my client was in the hallway. I looked at the judge and the judge says, "Where's your client, Mr. Flavin?" And I said, "Well, he's right there in the hallway. I've already talked with him this morning." Essentially, this is what we were going to do. Get another date for a PTR on a petition to revoke where the person had a case open in another courtroom or another county, and we were going to get a date past that date for him to resolve the other matter. The judge was like, "Yeah, I'm going to have to pass it because you're going to have to go get your client to come in here and get that new date." And you're like, "Oh, okay. I guess my word is like 0. And
'Cause
now
of
I'm going
mine.
to go, now I'm going to go get in the line of the 7 attorneys that are in a row. So I guess I'll be back in a half hour. Thanks. You guys are great. You guys really took care of this. Good job." You know,
Well, I get it. They didn't know how to do it, but some of the first appearances after COVID, which the client doesn't need to be at, the clerks just set for bench trial.
oh
You know,
yeah.
bench trials that I had set, and you can't always get a hold of your client, and sometimes they change your number, and it's hard.
Right.
And so far, the judges have been very accommodating. That's great, but at some point, some guy that I haven't been able to get a hold of, or is his phone number changed or whatever the reason, somebody's going to
course.
get a warrant issued because they just said, "Screw it, we're just going to set bench trials after this thing."
Well, I think that one of those guys might have a civil suit because what's going to happen is that they're going to get no notice that they've juried it around, or they've rearranged it like they have, and that person doesn't have notice that they were supposed to be in court, and as a result, they missed, and now they're gonna issue a warrant based on that, and you're like, well, that makes sense for no reason. Oh well.
Well, what I'd like to do, and what I couldn't find the tweets where we had our predictions. I wanted to pull some of those up.
I know.
I looked at some of those.
I saw you tweeted some of them. That's what made me want to go back. I'm not going to say the term, maybe Nostradamus-like is too strong. I don't think so. We may have been off by a couple of weeks at most, but we were fairly accurate.
We made those predictions like in March.
Well, it was like it's the first or second week we started doing this.
Well, right. Well, so we make it like second week in March, third week in March, we make those predictions for July, and they are correct.
Yeah.
When is Disney going to
Well-
open? Got it by within a week.
Yeah, we're like off by like 6 days on Disney, but some of them are still out there, like the Dow Jones Industrial Average at Christmas. Like that's Ray, it's way over the prediction at this point. Now, I think everybody expects that's going to change, but it was interesting going back looking at those because there might have been a football one in there or a college sports. I mean, I was just going through them and I was like, wow, it's crazy. Not only how accurate they were, but how like we nailed almost all the big topics too.
Amazon
smart.
was at 1900 in the first couple weeks of March, and I predicted 7,000 for next year. It's at 3,200 right now.
Great. Let me share a screen.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
We predicted I said September, October, that we're going to have another huge spike and potentially a shutdown, to which Matt Heiduke said, "Are you nuts? August." And well, our friend, the Empress in Michigan, who you guys know how much I love her.
You do.
This is little Gretchen Crackdown here. This is in Cass County. I forget what lake it was in. But this is in Michigan that, it's supposed to be.
You could say whatever you want. People in
Rock
Michigan know
solid.
how to party.
Right. Yeah. And it seems to be, and then I've talked to some people in Texas, where Governor Abbott was, and at the time, who could have blamed him? He left it in God's hands, and it seemed like a pretty solid, scientifically based plan to just reopen everything, and God was on their side. I'm somewhat
I
surprised.
don't know how you can be wrong when God is on your side.
I mean, it's Texas, so he had reason to believe it. But Governor Abbott, we were very critical of him reopening, just going from 0 to 60. And well, turns out I feel like
Turns out it was a problem.
it turns out maybe God was busy, because they are cranking out 10,000 cases a day. I think this was
It's never wrong to lean on God for support in a very significant way, and they have.
It's
They
almost like
They
there's
really
math
lean.
involved.
It's almost like it's math.
oh, who gave us math? God gave us math.
Truth. But he expected us to use it, right? Not ignore it.
And then we have, Big Ten indicated that they were only going to go to conference play, which I think comes to part of our discussion that we had about college football. The Ohio State athletic director, who has been kind of leading the charge for the NCAA football program, and I think his words were, "I am no longer cautiously or otherwise optimistic about college football happening." And we saw the Ivy League cancel its conference hoops tournament, which then led to didn't lead to it, but it was in the front of the charge to cancel college basketball. The Ivy League has canceled all fall sports. And I think with some of these bigger programs, I mean, Clemson, I'm a Clemson fan, but I'll call it what it is. At one point, when Clemson went back to school, I think probably 4 or 5 days later, they had 36 or 37 positive tests down there. I think a lot of the ACC and the SEC programs, the bigger programs that, they need to get going. In some of the states, perhaps Texas, perhaps Florida, I don't know. They had higher numbers of positive tests, and I think they're starting to realize it. I'm kind of, I don't know. You guys know how I am about football. I'm not super optimistic that IHSA is going to let it.
I got a football question though, IHSA or NCAA. And by the way, if you want to have a good legal discussion, we should have a conversation about how the Big Ten and these power conferences said no conference games, which is backing out of games with smaller teams or smaller conference teams that are usually guaranteed big money. Like, how is that going to shake out? I had a really good discussion, or had a discussion with my friends on that. But from a look, we all love football. I mean, I am an NIU season ticket holder to tell you how stupid I am about football. But how do you look at a college kid right now and say, yeah, I understand your school may not even be starting on time, or a high school kid, your school could be delayed. You could be going remotely. We don't know what your school is going to look like, but show up and start bleeding out there right now for a season that we don't know is even going to happen. And risk getting sick and risk taking that illness back to your family and back to your mom because we're giving you a scholarship. Like, I get the schools are in bad spots and the athletic departments need the money, but it just seems a lot to ask student athletes, if we're still pretending they're student athletes, and I think most of them still are, but it's asking a lot of them in this environment to show up and go to war basically for their guys and practice every day in this insane heat, when we all know that it's probably all going to get canceled. Like, how is that in the best interest of these kids at this point? As much as I want to see football,
Tommy's working out, and they got the new phase 4 guidelines. You can have camps, you can get together, but there's no contact. Excuse me. If the status of it is now that you can't have contact And guys
So,
that you're
Pat,
working
are
out
they
with,
staying 6 feet apart?
for the most part,
DBs
yeah.
staying 6 feet off the wide receivers.
They're trying to. You can run drills, but you have to have social distancing in your drills, and they're running them in, they're breaking them down in groups of 10, but you can't have any contact. So if we're going from no contact in drills with the guys that you've been working out with all summer long anyway, since they opened it back up to groups of 10, how are you going to go from no contact? You can't physically, I'm not talking about hitting. I'm not talking about dropping a guy. I'm talking about, working on your hand technique or anything like that. I don't know how you go from that to full contact in late August, early September. I don't know how you do it. I
don't know how you point blank ask kids to show up and give 100%, knowing that they could get 6 weeks into practice, that this whole thing could get canceled, and they could be told they're not going to go to school. To me, it's just a lot to ask for kids. There's no reason that all this stuff can't get pushed back. High school football, I mean, it's a little bit trickier, but the college football, why not call, September your August, push it back a month or 2 months, and let's wait. I mean, it's just
on ESPN 1000 today, Bowling Green is not getting their Big Ten game, and I forget which Big Ten team they were. That's $2.5 million.
Your Huskies are out too, Maryland and Iowa. And then they had the second half of a home with BYU, which they moved to that goofy soccer stadium in Bridgeview, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but it was going to probably make them more money. I mean, they make no money. It was probably going to make them more money. So you're talking about 3, big games that have basically been scrapped already. And usually they're getting around at least $1 million to go to these Big Ten games.
If Bowling Green's losing 2.5 by one Big Ten game,
right,
I would guess by those 3 games that Northern's getting whacked, I would guess they're making 4 to 5,
exactly.
3 to 4,
which is probably 60 to 70% of the money they make in a year period. The athletic, right. the football program. So,
and I mean, look what happened to Stanford. Stanford cut 11. Now Stanford had more varsity sports than 95% of the schools out there, but Stanford cut 11 varsity sports.
So, so I had this kind of conversation with my guys from high school. For me, what's interesting from a legal standpoint is you're the MAC, or if you want to be incorrect, the MAC conference. You let Big Ten say you're not going to come. Well, you've got a guaranteed contract, right? So if I'm NIU, I have a couple moves. I can sue on that contract, and probably it's going to settle for less, which is fine because you're not going through the travel and you're not having to move people and all that stuff. But I mean, can I maybe work Iowa into a game against NIU at Soldier Field that's a home game for NIU at this point and has a much bigger gate up the way? I mean, these conferences, I think, are getting a lot of leverage by allowing the Big Ten and the SEC to act first and kind of cut them out from these contracts. It's an interesting move to me that the Big Ten didn't wait to see if the MAC or somebody was going to come up and say, look, we're not sending our athletes out there, in which case, they would have a lot more room to negotiate. But now, I mean, man, I hope you start to see like maybe Iowa comes back and plays at Soldier Field. Maybe we get Maryland at home up the road. Who knows? I'm looking forward to it.
How do you say it's safe to play Michigan, but it's not safe to play Bowling Green? It's not safe to play Northern. It's not safe to play Akron or, one of the MAC schools. Football's football, man.
Which is why maybe this year we have a mini conference, Illinois, NIU, Northwestern. Keep it in the state. Bring it on.
That would be pretty cool. That would be awesome.
That's what I'm saying.
At least it would be a state. It would be a state that is doing well with the pandemic.
Yeah.
For the time being, Ray, our numbers are ticking up.
What is okay? So as far as predictions go, is the court going to close again?
When you say the court, which court do you talk about? Because tomorrow I will be in my 3rd or 4th county this week.
McHenry County Court.
I mean,
where are our numbers? I haven't looked at Illinois numbers.
So Pat, the Illinois numbers are roughly the equivalent of early April. Like we dipped really well, and then it kind of tailed off. And now the last, say, week and a half is tipped up. And I expect with 4th of July, it's going to be a couple more weeks until you really see that number go up. But the trend right now, the 7-day rolling average or whatever it's not good.
Oof.
Sorry.
So Ray, if you go to the health data page, which I think has more current information, I didn't check it today, but it's kind of like we're hitting higher lows and higher highs than we were 2 weeks ago, which, I know it's not the stock market, but that's usually a bad sign.
This is kind of, this is kind of a, I know that we've talked a little bit about this before. This is the map where they talk about the, where COVID is hitting the worst. And we're holding our own as a county. We're right up there. But let me just, I can't, boy, this map is, it's super technical. That is so interesting. I need to learn how to do that one. No, the funny thing or the interesting thing for me is that the 7,000 deaths. That's kind of crazy.
All right, so I'm going to say no. I don't think we close again.
You're going to say we don't close again.
I know it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if that pays off.
Well, if we don't close, I might as well start trying cases. Right?
They have made some adjustments to the courtroom that I tried that case in.
I got barked at, by the way, based on your
last case went for the defense, right?
Is that Phil's?
Right, they did that. Yeah, Phil won.
Oh boy, Phil. I wanted to talk to him because he tried it in the new configuration, which is, it's not like it's supposed to be. It's not like it's set up, but it's closer. They've got the jury in the pews. Nobody's in the jury box. They're moving the witness, the little bailiff stand. They're going to move that in front of the jury box, and then they're going to slide our tables over. We're going to be sitting next to the prosecutors.
Is the jury in the box together?
No, they're not in the box, but Caldwell's courtroom.
Yeah.
The section of pews that looks at the bench.
Right.
They're gonna be spread out through that. You're gonna have five in the back row. 2 empty row, 2, and then so that's 9. And then they're going to have 4 on chairs in front of the half wall.
Right.
So you'll have them all together-ish. And then the bailiff's box is going to be used as the witness stand, and that's going to be put in front of where the jury box is in Caldwell's courtroom. So,
what kind of case did Phil try?
I don't know.
Sexual abuse. It was a criminal sexual abuse case with, I think, like an exploitation of a child charge tacked on.
I think that. Do you think that the jurors are mad at the state for bringing them in there?
Well, that was my thought when I tried it, and we were there for 8 hours after we gave them the case, so they couldn't have been too mad.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I bumped into Phil several times kind of as he's coming and going and talked to him, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him. I bumped into the hallway yesterday or whatever and congratulated him. But I think that the case, I don't know how to say this. Phil's a guy who probably is going to do things his own way and not necessarily follow what everybody else would say conventional wisdom should be. And sometimes that breaks your way. And I know Phil's client testified, and I know there was some other stuff going on in that case. It doesn't sound like it was maybe the greatest case in the world to start. Not that I'm taking anything away from Phil, because anytime you win one of those, it's a big damn deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Phil probably did some pretty creative stuff in there. Whether or not it helped or hurt, I don't know. And obviously, as somebody who tries cases there too and has a bunch of those, I'm interested in talking to Phil as soon as I get a minute to do it. So
Yeah. Well, I gotta, the time crunch that I was under when I tried that one the first time is still there. So I'm probably going to be doing that on the 20th. So we'll see.
You're just you're just gonna fall right back in and do that case again.
Yeah. Yeah. If I didn't have to,
oh wow,
wouldn't-
when is that case reset?
the 20th, July 20th.
So I just set a couple in there for like October that are like cases that are going to go. But I would, if you guys,
That's what I've been doing. I've been setting up first week, second week, third week in October for case. That's when I'll be starting again.
It's starting to feel like at some point the dam's going to burst and they're just going to end up doing like 3 trials in a week there at some point, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Well, I think
Boom, boom,
I
boom,
think
boom.
they're still potentially setting up the assembly room, which I'd like to see that as well. But I think I'm the only one set on the 20th. So I'll be going back in Caldwell's courtroom.
So
but-
in the nature of predictions, I got a question that's been just bubbling in my head for weeks about COVID lockdown stuff. Going back to what originally set us off, which was these governor's orders. And hear me out here. So you guys remember mid-May, Governor Evers' order in Wisconsin was overturned by the Supreme Court. And I read through that opinion. I think Pat read through some of it. And they overturned the rule on a very technical thing, a procedural thing, saying that the way the rule order was passed did not kind of fit what the statute said should happen. And we talked about what was going to happen, and Evers responded by doing absolutely nothing. I think his attitude was, you people don't want to deal with this. Like, here's the world, go on. If you look at Wisconsin's numbers, yesterday Wisconsin set an all-time high number of COVID diagnoses. It was barely above the number that they were looking at in May, which also was similar to a peak they had in April. So they kind of had these, I don't know if it went level or it went up and went down and went up and went down, but right now Wisconsin is on the uptick. As somebody who was in Wisconsin for 4th of July weekend, it looked like that shot Pat showed to Michigan. There were spots where there were boats tied up and people in bars, listening to music and doing all kinds of stuff that you probably wouldn't see as common in Illinois. So my question is, given our previous discussions, what do you think the governor of Wisconsin, how do you think he's going to respond? I mean, they have an older population in Wisconsin. They've got a rural population that has virtually no healthcare infrastructure at all. And they are not equipped to deal with, a mass of people going there. And then you've got a governor who politically got shot down by the Supreme Court and responded by not fighting back.
Well, I mean, think about the medical infrastructure they have up by you. What happens if they get an outbreak?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Anything. Wausau is probably the last place close to you that has any type of, I guess I'll call it substantial medical, but they can't handle that entire region.
There's a newer hospital in Rhinelander and there's an ancient hospital in Anago, but yeah, they're not, you get north of Wausau, even into like, Minocqua or some of the more populated tourist areas. Those are towns that are built for tourist infrastructure. They're not really built for the number of people who have kind of moved up there since May and are staying there. And northern Wisconsin, if this thing hits there, is just going to get obliterated because they're going to fill those hospitals up in 4 seconds. Are we looking at the Wisconsin numbers?
This is all Wisconsin numbers. We can see that you can interpret things however you want, but it looks to me like their death rate is flattening slightly. This is that double peak you were talking about, confirmed cases. We had kind of a bump,
and the death
bump, and then now they're in the you're in the neighborhood of starting to crush what they would have called the peak had they not rebounded.
And like I said, I think you're going to get a huge 4th of July push. I don't think there's any doubt about that after what I saw. So
I
the
think
question again is, go ahead.
anybody I've talked to that was up there, it was not quite like that Cass County, Michigan, but it was a Fiesta Grande. I mean, they were going bananas up there. Like it was the normal 4th of July.
It was a
Yeah.
Fiesta Grande.
Yeah. If you've ever seen 4th of July in the Northwoods, that's all you got to say. It was basically normal 4th of July. They canceled some fireworks here and there. They didn't cancel some fireworks in other places. And, you know, they were still putting out the brats and the beers and all that stuff. And the people were, you know, having giant flotillas and all kinds of stuff. So, but to me, it's going to be interesting to see how the state of Wisconsin responds, because you've already got this political loss in front of the Supreme Court, which you responded with nothing. I mean, I don't think Evers wants to just let things ride, but on the other hand, you know, what is he even going to do at this point? It's scary to me as somebody in Illinois, because obviously you guys know, especially, you know, Ray, you're there like 9 miles from the border. Wisconsin, look, you can call me a fib all you want. Wisconsin is basically Illinois' playground.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
as much as they get offended by that, they'll take our tourist dollars all day. But you can't really, like, that's a border that's just going to get crossed nonstop anyways. And I feel like whatever happens there is going to be here 4 seconds later.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what percentage in your region? I know in your region on a normal 4th of July, what's the percentage of the population that's from south of the border?
Oh, well, where our places in Lang Lake County gets a much higher percentage of people from Madison or Green Bay because it's off the beaten path. If you go a
I
little bit
noticed
west,
a lot
and
of
stay
people
on-
from Minnesota.
Yeah, so if you go farther west and you stay on 51, the Illinois people like to keep shooting straight up 51 to Minocqua. You get way more Illinois over there. Or also north of us towards Rhinelander, where people can just stay on 17. Like, you don't have to get on little county highways. So it's a much higher percentage there. But for instance, our little area of the lake, the people next door have died. They were from Illinois. They've passed on other people. They were from South Dakota. The people on the other side of us are from McHenry County, and they must have had 15 people in the house and different groups of people showing up every day. So like our little corner is basically all Illinois and a lot of Illinois. And then around the lake, it's
The house, if you're looking at the lake, the one to the left where I forget his name, but we were over there fishing with him. They passed away.
Yep.
Is it still in the family?
No, the other side, the little brown house.
Okay. I've never seen anybody up there while we were there.
So, and they've been showing up, like they're up there now, but they're coming from South Dakota, which the chances of somebody from South Dakota bringing stuff to somebody from Illinois, I think is pretty low. But, you know, the people on the other side are from Illinois. And a lot of people went up in May and have stayed there since May. So if you start having a bad outbreak there, I think a lot of those people are going to come right back here and bring it back. And that, to me, it's one of the scary things. It's like, okay, Wisconsin has zero control at this point. And even the local grocery store, which said that originally they were requiring people to put masks on, have now backed down and made masks suggested or recommended or something like that. But you walk into any bar up there, there's nobody wearing a mask, and they're as crowded as ever because half of Illinois used it as a refuge. And when this thing hits up there, which I think is going to be in about like 6 more days, I just think all that's coming back to Illinois, which is why I still don't understand why we're going to court for nonsense.
Yeah.
And you can add for me that it's all non-emergency nonsense. I mean,
Well, what is an emergency anymore?
I did 2 order protection hearings. I've done 3 statutory summary suspension hearings and a trial. So I haven't done, and all of it was stuff that if we continued it to November, it wouldn't have made a damn bit of difference.
I did a couple of, I think I've done, I don't know, 3 or 4 summaries, 2 bench
Yeah, but
trials.
what,
a straight
the
trial.
thing is that you sit there and you go like this. Why? Why?
That's the thing, Ray. I've done some, like I did a 11510 hearing, a lengthy 11510 hearing on a sex abuse case. I did a motion to quash and suppress yesterday on the egregious offense of cocaine residue in the corner of a baggie, which is a felony, big time stuff. But yeah, it's nice to knock this stuff out at a point where I don't have 65 million other things going on, and you know I can get a little more into it. But on the other hand, I'm doing this stuff and I'm thinking like, I don't know why. But other than that,
Right.
everything is continuances or pleas. I mean, I don't know, whatever.
I sent this to you guys. We're talking about the no masks, and one of you guys had the same, the perfect analogy. Hey, I have rights, but I still have to wear pants. So I mean, why is a mask so much? And here's the, Tessie Smith, June 15th, me wearing no mask and going the wrong way in the aisle in Walmart. I forget the date of this one. 2 weeks later, Tessie Smith, pray for me. Thoughts and prayers. Oh my God. It
Well,
seems to be.
Matt did a tweet where he said that, you guys who are offended about wearing the masks, I can hardly wait to
Right.
see how you respond to somebody, searching your nuts for weapons or whatever, and the thing is that it's so funny. White people are so funny because they will lose their mind over whether they can get a mask or not, but they will give up rights to the police with just like, why wouldn't I do that?
If you have
Ray,
nothing to
can I-
hide,
can I
why are
give
you
you a
worried
little-
about the search?
If you have nothing to hide, why wouldn't you let the police go in your garage and open your stuff? You're like, what?
Can I give you a little context on that? Can I give you just a
ahead.
little bit of context where that tweet came from?
Is
Go
that the
ahead.
traffic stop where the guy's saying get a female officer here?
No, this is a traffic stop where
I like that idea though.
this is straight out of my hearing from yesterday. Cops pull a guy over, they pace him for speeding. He pulls over exactly where they tell him to pull over. Cop 1, who happens to be in the gang intelligence unit of McHenry County because there's a big gang problem, goes to the driver's side. Cop 2 goes to the passenger side. They immediately get all the identification from every one of the people in the car. There's 3 people in the car. Then they ask the car to move to another location. And it's just a speeding stop at this point, okay? They think they smell an odor of cannabis at the second location, and they end up getting all of these people out of the car, including my client who's a passenger, and they frisk him immediately. And when I asked the cop, like, why did you frisk him? He's like, for officer safety. And I'm like, did he threaten you? Did you see a weapon? Was he acting erratic? No. It's just my policy to frisk everybody because I don't know who they are. And I was like, don't you have a policy that says you can't just do that? Isn't it written right here? And I start reading from his policy, which of course the state objects to. But the point is that this guy is saying basically you can't frisk somebody without specific reasons to do that. This cop gets up on the stand and says he does that. He runs the passenger identification for warrants as a matter of common practice. And every time he gets somebody out of the car, he frisks them. And it was just funny. Like, people are going nuts about masks, but nobody's like, hey,
Who do you
I'm
think
not
would be
okay with the
upset?
government touching.
They're okay.
I'm
Put
not
your hand
okay
up.
with the government touching my genitals through my pants because they pulled me over as a passenger in a car for speeding. We're not going to worry about that. But, Target makes you put a mask on, or the bowling alley makes you put a mask on, and we're going to go nuts.
Here's a perfect example of it. How many people wigging out about masks would be upset about this?
Oh, Pat, that's just, oh, you're this. All right. Uh-oh. What? Is he got a gun out?
Look at the start of it. You know, he's using the back of his hands per policy. That was a
Did
traffic
that
stop.
second cop have a gun on her?
I think he did.
He
Wow.
looked that second guy looked like he had his firearm out. I don't look, I'm not advocating for masks, or I mean, look, it's ridiculous to say that a private company making you wear a mask on private property is violating your rights. If that's your honest belief, you don't understand your rights, and that's fine. Maybe you could Google them, but it's crazy to
Maybe
me.
you could Google them.
Yeah, call me, Google them, whatever you want to do. But it's nuts that there are actual constitutional violations going on as a matter of course, as was testified to tomorrow. And there's about 4 people in the world who are trying to do anything about it, and none of them are these angry mask or non-mask people.
No.
It's almost like they don't care.
Well, I mean, clearly that, and that's what my friend in Texas, who I've been, you know, prodding daily, because they were laughing in Illinois for, you know, you guys are still locked down. Oh my God, I can't believe it. We're wide open, no problems. And I've been prodding him, and hey, well, that's because we didn't put it in God's hands. You put it in God's hands. That's why you guys are so far ahead of us. Now they're blaming the younger generation who refuses to wear masks. My observations, at least up here, it's not the younger generation that's refusing to wear masks. It's, you know, Karen and Darren who are refusing to wear masks because, you know, Walmart's violating their rights. Yeah, Walmart can violate your rights. Well, you're not letting me in. I have a teeth cleaning scheduled for today, and you're violating my rights. You can't do that. You can't take my temperature. You can't do this. You can't do that.
I blame the 11th grade social
That's the
studies
best
teachers.
clip.
I just blame, as I said, I just blame the 11th grade social studies teachers. They should have
Right,
told you how it works.
There's a part of that is worthy of discussion, at least insofar as public school curriculum is concerned. Like, was the I don't know how else to call it, so I'll call it the criminal defense constitutional perspective, which could also be the pro Bill of Rights perspective. Other than giving lip service of here's the Bill of Rights, here's what the rights are in a vacuum, did anybody ever explain to you in school, here's how these rights come up all the time and here's how they're interacting with each other? No.
No,
even in law school, you barely learn that.
It's here's the Constitution. You got to memorize it. You got to remember it for about 8 seconds. We're not going to show you any practical application, but you got to be able to fill out this test so, you know, we can meet the state mandate. Okay, you know the Constitution. You don't know how it applies to daily life, and quite honestly, most people don't care.
Well, I know, but wouldn't it serve us better if people understood better? If they understood their rights, they'd be like, okay, I understand why I have to do it and why I have to, you know, why it's good for the public for me to act in this certain way and where that power comes from, if there's a power, and where that power really applies and doesn't apply. Instead, you just watch, you read Twitter, you read Facebook, and you go, you know what? This is why I will always have a job for the rest of my life, because people don't understand the way it works, period.
I'm talking even more basic, like Ray, the Fourth Amendment says it's a prohibition on an unreasonable search and seizure. If you don't do what we do, you have no idea what a seizure is, period, right? You don't know that when the cops pull you over by using their lights and they take your license back to the police car, that you've been seized. When he grabs your license, you've been seized for purposes of the Fourth Amendment. So, like, nobody is taught about it in that way. Like, here's an everyday way you are probably going to be seized, and what are your rights? And as a passenger, if they take your license, are you also seized? Well, you are. And what does it mean? Nobody, I'm not saying a law school class needs to be taught, but it seems that kids getting pumped out of high school as seniors who've gone through public school, would it hurt to have them learn that sort of stuff a little bit more? I mean, all the nonsense stuff we were forced to learn, like we had to do square dancing in gym class, big damn deal, right? Teach me more about the Fifth Amendment. How does it come up? How How can I use it? What do I do if a cop isn't going to let me be quiet or isn't going to let me call somebody? I mean, this is citizen government interaction is not really taught at all. We learn about the government in the abstract. We learn about the principles. We don't, other than being taught we can vote and pass over jury duty. They don't really talk about government citizen interaction at all, and it's a huge failing, I think, it's a failure to recognize.
I have people with college degrees come into my office and tell me that they want to prove that they're innocent of the charges.
Wait.
What are you going to do to
And
prove
then
my
when they
case?
get a dumb look from me, they're like, "What's wrong? Don't you understand?" And I'm
Right.
like,
Yesterday at this hearing, I was challenged several times why I was asking how long the officer held the driver's license of the passenger. And I kept having to say, as long as he has that license, the passenger is seized. And the length of the seizure has to be related to the reason they're investigating, right? This is all ABCD stuff, but I'm having to argue it. I'm having to argue it back and forth. So, forget people who walk in off the streets. It's so complicated that even a lot of the people in the legal context aren't just flipping it off the top of their head.
Along
so
those
you're
lines,
telling me we're doomed. That's what you're telling me.
along those lines, would it really, when they're doing their constitution test component, in social studies or, there's no more civics, that's been gone since Leave It to Beaver, but every high school student has to pass their constitution test. Would it kill them to take an extra 2 weeks in social studies and just show an everyday application to the Bill of Rights? No, it absolutely would not. But for some reason, they will not. Every kid can recite the Miranda warnings. They've seen it 1,800 times in a movie over the course of their lifetimes. None of them can tell you that means I shouldn't talk to the police.
How many times during this pandemic have you been told the police have rights too?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like
Not only
this.
that,
You're like this. Did you just say that? Is that
and to Pat's
unironically?
point, everybody can rip off the Miranda warnings because they've seen it on TV. How many times have you guys seen somebody say they want a lawyer and have the cops provide them with a lawyer?
0. Well, we're just asking some questions
I've
right
been-
now. We're processing you right now. The time for a lawyer is later. No, it's not. It's right now.
Or the cops, or they just
Blow right through
stop
it.
the questioning. I've been called to the police station a couple times, and one time I actually made it there before the questioning was over. And the cop was like, "I've never actually had a lawyer show up." And it turned out that the police department was right by my office. So I just zipped over there. But for the most part, if somebody says, "I'm not talking without a lawyer," they don't call a lawyer to give this person counsel as to whether or not they should talk or why they should talk or how they should talk. They just say, "We're done with the whole interview. It's over." So it's like in that respect, even people who are learning about Miranda through pop culture or whatever are not learning how Miranda works when somebody tries to invoke it.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I mean, like you said, you're not going to give a con law or crim pro class to a bunch of high school students. You're just not. But it certainly would be nice to teach them their ability and how to exercise the rights that they've been given. As long, for now, they have them for now. Who knows how much longer they're going to have them? But along those lines, what do the two of you think about diploma privilege? Have you guys seen anything about that?
I don't understand why this is an issue. Let these kids practice law. That's my take.
The
Go
wheat's
ahead.
going to get sorted from the chaff anyway. I mean, if they suck, they suck. They're not going to be here very much longer.
Tell
And-
me I haven't heard about the dispute. Tell me about it.
So Ray, what's going on right now is most of the states are still requiring an in-person bar exam.
Oh,
A
okay.
lot of states have pushed it back to like September. I think Illinois has been pushed back to September. So if you can imagine the torture of studying for the bar exam, imagine it going on right now where you can't do like the in-person studying stuff if you did that.
Right.
And a
Right.
lot of these new people are saying like, we're anxious. We need to get to work. This is a dumb way to do this. Let us practice. Now, I'll point
Right.
out that Wisconsin has had diploma privilege for in-state law students, forever, and nobody's ever complained. the bar pass rate in Illinois is what, like 90 or 92% or 89% or whatever it is.
Right.
And to be honest,
Which makes you wonder, after you come to that point, why not just require everybody to do everything up to that point and then hand them a license?
look, here's my take on it. Like,
You're not
number
weeding
one,
anybody out.
I think the bar probably weeds out some people who would be really good lawyers. Okay, there's people who aren't
Right.
good test takers who are anxious, who would be really good lawyers who just don't pass it. Second of all, like Pat's saying, the bar doesn't prepare you to practice law. It's just kind of
Right.
like, can you cram a bunch of crap into your head? Let these people practice. And maybe a better way to do it is to make them where they have to have some sort of mentor for a year or whatever. I mean, it's such a ridiculous, archaic way to try to determine who's fit to practice.
But it's
When
the
we've
way
also-
we've always done it, Matt.
Yeah.
It's the way
And-
we've always done it.
It's also an industry, Ray. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Oh,
to
it
get fired up.
is.
Pat, what were you about to say on this?
I've seen valedictorians not pass the bar. I've seen, there was a kid we tried to hire.
I feel like I'm listening to that speech from Blade Runner. Go ahead.
There was a kid we tried to hire. We hired him just after he got out of law school. He failed his first time. He studied. He was working for us, as an intern while he was studying. Studied again, tanked it again, and just said, "Adios."
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's terrible.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pat, your wife is in education, right?
Yes.
Does she have a take on whether or not people should be tested for the bar, whether or not it accurately sort of sorts out the people it's trying to sort? Does she have a thought on that?
I think from the standpoint, she would be thinking more about their spouses or significant others and say, nobody should ever have to live through dealing with somebody who's studying for the bar. So I think she would be all for it. But I will ask her that. I will have an answer for you. I will have an answer for you next time around.
I mean, there's to me, there's also a very easy compromise too, which is this year you do a bar exam, which is more like the actual law. You say, here's a fact pattern, here's a problem, write a brief. You've got 3 days to write a brief, submit the brief. And 4 seconds after that brief is due, you give them another fact pattern and another problem. And you do that 5 or 6 times. And you say, okay, at this point, you've basically been a lawyer for 2 weeks. And if all these briefs are kind of good, you're a lawyer. I mean, that wouldn't require anybody to show up. It wouldn't require a ton of crazy studying. It wouldn't require that. But I just am like,
whatever would they do with their Convisor secured transactions bar exam
exactly.
review?
I'm not into torturing, would-be lawyers just because we got tortured, and that's just how it feels.
What would happen to the UCC, Matt?
Ray, 25 years later, I couldn't spell UCC if you spotted me both C's.
Yeah, I know.
I
Well-
don't know.
We have arrived at the station. We have the train has slowed, and we still don't know if the court's going to close or not. Hey, I'm sorry, Max.
Just wanna. It's 9:30. We are still going strong with no finish line.
There you go. He's showing you how it's
Go ahead,
done.
Ray. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
We still don't know if the court's going to close. I predicted it is going to close, and I will give you the date of the closure. The closure is going to be October 15th.
All right.
The other thing that hasn't happened, and it's something that I see people talking about a little bit in the financial pages, but not so much in Main Street. I mean, the other shoe, right? The other shoe is going to drop here. We have a significant number of people who are not, they're bringing $0 home. I mean, at some point you come to the end of the road, right?
Yeah.
We're going to give them another round of fake dollars, and it's going to cost you $21 for a Big Mac. I mean, right? I think that's the answer.
Well, they're doing another round of the payroll protection program for people who didn't get into it last time. So there's another 800 to $1 trillion that they're going to have to pay. There's going to be more stimulus money. And I don't know.
The inflation has to start at some point, but we can talk more about that later. Because
I've
Matt looks like
invited,
he wants to spend more time with Max for the next 3 or 4 hours.
I have also invited Fred Nickel on to chat with us next time. I haven't spoken to Fred for a while, so I think that would be.
Fred
Fred,
is one of the great ones, and I'll tell you what, his he's going to run circles around us.
We're gonna have Fred and Matt regale us with some tales.
Guys. We're slow
Oh,
old
man.
guys.
We're gonna have Fred and Matt regale us with some tales from when they were at the public defender's office, just burning down Rome every day.
It was weird. Fred and I could give you guys like an hour-long chat on speedy trial demands and how speedy trial demands have each shaped our the next 15 years of our lives and put us where we are now.
And if you
It's
only
not just a
knew
constitutional
in the future,
right.
if you only knew in the future they were going to throw them out, you could have argued that.
I know how crazy it is. It's all come full circle. It
Don't
It's
basically
worry
a dying
about
right.
Don't worry about it. They're good. You're
Speedy
going to get
trial
rid of them
demands.
anyway.
Speedy trial demands cost Fred and I essentially careers in government. Not that we were going to be there forever, and here we are where the Supreme Court has just said this isn't even a real thing. So if I knew then what I knew now, I probably still would have done the same stuff I did. But actually, I probably would have loved it more. I'd have been signing those things like, ha ha, this is you're right in 15 years.
They would have said, you're going to be fired if you file any more of those. And you'd be like this, get the secretary to do 100 more.
Yeah,
Let's
Run these
go.
off for me,
Yeah.
please.
Print
I'd
them
be
up.
like, bring me
Copy these
a
now.
crayon to sign them with. Bring me a gold pen or a crayon. That's what I would have done.
You should have insisted on signing them with a crayon. Good night, everybody. We'll see you
Good night,
next
guys.
week. Thursday, 8:30. We'll see you next week.